Welcome to the April 15th, 2025 Planning Advisory Commission. What?
September.
Thank you. Someone has got me straight here. That's good. Taxes. Good. So we will go ahead and we'll start with roll call.
Will Garrett.
I am present and it is September.
Jeff Berry.
Here.
Randy Lewis.
Here.
Bob Wilkerson.
Here.
Randall Stockard.
Here.
Isaiah Johnson.
Here. Very good. And then, gentlemen, we have two sets of minutes in front of us. Has everyone read them? Yes. Is everyone in agreement? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
Thank you, approved. Okay, the agenda is in front of us. Any modifications to the agenda? Do I hear a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any conflict of interest from members of that?
Nope. No.
No here. Okay, next meeting will be a continuation of tonight's public hearing. That will either be continued public comment if we don't finish tonight. It will be continuation of PAC deliberations if we don't finish tonight. That is the 29th of September, here 6 o'clock. Committee and staff updates. Sorry.
So I just want to remind everybody in the room, if you're planning on commenting tonight, make sure that you have signed in up at the front desk there at the door. So we can have that for our clerk. The record. We also received a resignation letter. It also went out to the chair as well from Mike Hill. So he's now no longer part of the PAC. Like Will said, continuation of our hearing on September 29th. And then I just want to share screen so everybody in the room knows what we are reviewing tonight. 1 second. And where it is on our website. I did share that information with a notification list in the email. But on the project page, the 2025 comprehensive plan update project page. So we have project reviews, we'll have the meeting dates. And then we have PAC public hearing materials, the draft comprehensive plan, Health and Human Services chapter, which is updated by our public health director, Dave Wyndham. Our appendix A is the HNA, the housing needs assessment, which was completed. And then we have appendix B, which is currently SCJ provided the transportation plan as an appendix. The PAC may decide to incorporate it into with the rest of the elements. They can make that decision on that. But SCJ incorporated it as an appendix right now just because of how big the document it is. And then appendix C, we're only referencing it here. It's not updated during this update. It's a optional element, and that's the cost plan. And then appendix D, the PAC already reviewed the capital improvement program from 2026 to 2031. So that they already provided their recommendation on that piece. And then appendix E is currently being used in elementary workbook. Additional documents on there is a draft comprehensive plan PAC comments. This is where 3 members of the PAC provided staff with comments prior to the last work session and shortly afterwards. SCJ and staff responded to those comments requests, and that's included in this document here. What was pulled out of that particular document was policy requests, revision requests. We put that into one document so staff as a whole can review that along with the public, and they can make decisions on that when we deliberate. So that's the document. Let me stop sharing. So before we get into public comment, we have Ann Sylvester here. She's with SCJ. She's joining us to give a quick overview of the transportation plan. So the group has not seen the transportation plan yet, the TIP path has. But she's here joining us to give a quick presentation on that. There won't be any questions for sake of time and giving public enough time for public comment on the entire plan. And then what else? Also, TIP, we had some additional comments that we received late in the day. I will be updating the website with all the comments that we've received from July 30th until today. I will have IT update the website, and the PAC will get the rest of those comments as well. So that will be the end of staff updates.
Okay. Any comments, members of the table? A couple of things, just real quick. First, I did receive an email from Mike Hill on the 9th, and I just want to resign and forward that to staff and to thank Mike for all his hard work, dedication, and focus on the community as he has helped and supported the PAC over the last year. We do have the TIPCAP met last Wednesday. We worked on a draft letter that got signed this morning and forwarded to us, so we have that. Has everyone seen that? Okay, good. And I think you're up.
Not quite yet.
No? All right, I'm sorry. What's next?
Public comment.
Oh, so she picks up in staff presentation. All right, okay. Change. Okay, so public comment. So this is now time for public comment for any item not on the agenda. So if you have a comment associated with the comprehensive plan, this is not the time to speak. If you have a comment on something else within the role of the PAC, this is the time to speak. So if you do, it's 3 minutes per person. I do ask you to identify your name, generally where you live. I do not want your address for personal privacy reasons. And is there anyone that would like to speak on a topic that is not comprehensive plan? Room, anyone on Zoom that do you have a topic not associated with a comprehensive plan, but within the realm of the PAC? Seeing no hands on Zoom and none in the room, I am going to close public comment. All right, now we can move on to staff presentation. Is that right, Mariah?
Yeah, and that would be Anne. Anne, you're up.
Okay, I sent in a request for sharing to be turned on, and I don't think that's happened yet.
They just did.
You just did?
Yep.
Okay. Aha. Okay, let me get some of this stuff out of the way so I can actually start the slideshow.
And if I may ask, how long do you think it'll take to go through the 25 slides?
I'm going to go through it pretty fast
Thank you.
because they told me I had about 10 or 15 minutes, so I will move quickly. I'd like to just talk briefly about what the Growth Management Act in Washington asks for us to do as part of a transportation plan, and briefly a little bit about the process that we went through. The plan includes goals and policies. It has a lot of inventory and key findings, and it has recommendations about things to do for each of the travel modes. There's also a financial plan and what's called a strategic action plan. This plan builds on the plan that was done in 2016. It updates it, keeps the same structure in many respects, but there's a lot of additional information to what was done previously. This is the Growth Management Act, and it has 12 specific things that are listed here that it asks us to include in a transportation plan. It has to be consistent with the land use plan. We've got to deal with traffic issues on local roads, county roads, state facilities. We got to look at all the travel modes, the highway system, aviation, marine, freight, bicycle, pedestrian. They all have to be addressed. And we have performance standards that we are looking at for each of these to determine how effective investments are in the transportation system and are they meeting the objectives that we have for the quality of performance. Financial plan, intergovernmental coordination, all of these things are part of the transportation planning process. How we do this thing, we start out by where do we get all the information that ultimately become projects? Well, we look at gaps and deficiencies, and active transportation refers to things like the bicycle and pedestrian mode, but also things like e-bikes and scooters and even wheelchairs. In some communities I've worked in, that has been a part of the active transportation system. We look at traffic operations, we count the traffic, we evaluate how well it's performing on highway segments and intersections. We look at prior work, we look at safety work, and then we listen to the public about what are the needs and desires that people are expressing. All that then goes into this multimodal plan development, comes with an unprioritized list of projects. We evaluate those against priorities, and those are established through the public process. We do cost estimates, we look at available funding and come up with a 20-year plan. The recommended plan then includes a list of projects by mode, goals and policies to guide the overall implementation of the plan and management of the transportation system, and then action strategies. And I'll describe those as I get through this presentation. The goals and policies, which are in the plan document, talk about these specific things that I've listed here about economic vitality, supporting the local economy, integrating with the land use plans to achieve the vision that Mason County has for itself as it grows and continues into the future. Preservation of the system, try to get as much as we can out of the existing system, keeping the life cycle costs low. That means maintenance when it's appropriate to do maintenance and not deferring it so that you end up having to rebuild an entire road as opposed to just putting chip seal on it or doing a less expensive maintenance effort. So timing is really important in the preservation program. Looking at safety and how we address emergencies, mobility, people and goods, how we get around, the environment, reducing impacts, promoting public health and stewardship, and how we support community needs. So this is just a couple of examples of the information that is in the plan, just a couple map examples. So we have a freight route system, which is largely the state highway system, but there's a number of county roads on here, and that's sort of stratified by how much freight is being carried. So down in the corner down here, you've got, that's I-5 actually. That is like the main freight route in the state of Washington. It's a T1 corridor, millions of tons of freight that it carries. Most of the roads in Mason County, kind of in the middle in terms of the 300,000 to 4 million tons per year of freight that are carried on these facilities, all types of freight, whatever it is. And then we also look at what the function of the road is, and the higher order roads carry the most traffic, typically have the highest speeds, have the greatest degree of access control, like freeways where you could only get on at interchange, or limited access along the major arterials so that the traffic moves more smoothly and more safely, all the way down to the lower order streets where the predominant function is to get access to property. So the minor collectors, the local roads, their primary function is to get access and not to move people. So we classify the roads, and this relates then to the kind of design standards and the enforcement of and management of the road system. We do a lot of data collection, and these are some of the roads that we looked at, and we collect a lot of information about what their classifications were, what their speeds were, pavement type, pavement condition, the route, freight carrying capacity. A couple of things that I highlighted here on Brockdale Road, Coquitlam Road, Old Olympic Highway, and Sand Hill Road. Very interesting about the huge differential between what the posted speed is. The 85th percentile speed is the speed at which 85% of the population does that speed or less. So it's considered the reasonable speed from the perspective of the average driver. So in the case of Brockdale Road, it's posted for 45 miles an hour. People are driving it almost at 60 and they feel safe doing so. And if that's a problem, we either raise the speed limit or we increase enforcement or we do things from an engineering perspective to try and manage that speed. So this just tells us a little bit about how the road system is functioning. We did an inventory of bridges and culverts. The county updates their bridge report that they report to the state on every year. They look at kind of what the condition of the bridges are. They prioritize the projects for improvement over a specific year. Some of the key takeaways are the 98 bridges that are owned and operated in the county. 97 by the county and one by Shelton. And this gives you kind of an idea of the kinds of bridges. There's actually 8 timber bridges still in existence, culverts, number of structures that need to be replacement. And one of the key takeaways from the whole discussion about bridges in the county is the number of culverts, priority culverts that need to be replaced on local roads. And these are either just because they need to be replaced, the condition in which they're in, or because they're fish passage issues. And so, the county tries to be responsive to addressing that priority, which is a state priority. And there's a number of those culverts that need to be replaced over the next 5-6 years. We looked at safety, and this is all of the crash data on all the county roads as reported over the 5-year period that we looked at. The biggest thing here, that on the left-hand side, the 41, whoops, hello. Shoot, sorry. There, the 41% are fixed objects, which means somebody left the roadway and they hit something, a mailbox, a telephone pole, a wall, a landscape barrier, whatever it was, the building, whatever it was they hit. They left the road. The category of over the embankment, where there's no guardrail, ditch, that's a big category here. Actually more than half of the crashes involve people leaving the roadway. And strategically, what we kind of look at when we are looking at this in a great level of detail, that's not in the transportation plan, but like in a safety action plan, we will look at things like, where should we be adding rumble strips? Where should we be widening shoulders? Where should we be adding guardrail? Things of that nature that enhance the safety of the system. This just paints a picture of what the nature of the safety problems are, and also talks about the severity. So we had a 2% fatality rate. We had a 4% serious injury rate, but 57% had no injuries at all. It was property damage only. So that gives you a picture. This is very typical. So there's nothing really extraordinary in the fatal and serious injury crashes. They're pretty much in line with what's happening around the state. And there is a state objective and a series of programs and a lot of funding at both the state and federal level to try to hit what's called target zero, which is essentially not wanting to have there be any traffic deaths. And it's a goal we move towards by 2030 of no traffic deaths on the highway system through engineering, enforcement, through the construction of improvement projects like what I just mentioned to try and deal with roadway departures. But this paints a picture of what's happening in the county today. Other modes that we looked at, active transportation, the bicycles and pedestrians. One of the things that the county is doing is when they are making improvements in a specific area, they are widening shoulders along key county roads where they expect there to be demand, like roads that are going to parks or to trailheads, or where they're hearing from the public through their complete streets policy or the trails plan or other information that's received from the public of where there's an interest in actually providing some enhanced facilities to bicycle on primarily. Support for the Mason Transit Authority's efforts related to bus stops and improved transit facilities and the services that they provide. Support to the ongoing efforts for facilities and services at Sanderson Field to support the aviation mode. Addressing the rail service needs, the higher freight volume corridors and their needs, and then the marina. All of those various modes are addressed in this plan. And then we began to look out into the future. So this paints the picture of what's going on today in the transportation system, all the modes, all the issues, the problems that need to be addressed today. We also need to look out into the future because the county is growing. There's a 20-year growth projection from the land use side, population and employment growth. That translates into needs and potentially deficiencies from the transportation perspective. And so what we looked at here was where that might occur on the key roads that we were studying. We're looking 20 years out into the future. And what we're seeing is Agate Road, and there's the milepost that the county has. Works okay today. Out in the future, there's going to be a lot of traffic there that might begin to create some congestion problems. And these problems are going to be primarily at intersections. Brockdale Road, a number of locations today even, but out into the future. and all up to a couple of sections of Brockdale Road. Those are ones that we want to focus a little bit more on when we start to look at specific intersections. So this begins to paint a picture for us of what's happening in the major road system. Now we want to focus in and begin looking at specific corridors, specific intersections. This is a little bit more detailed look at State Highway 3. We looked at the various segments, looked at the volume, looked at the growth that might be expected in this area and how well they would be performing. This is LOS refers to level of service. And that is basically a description of the amount of delay or the degree of congestion that a road experiences. For rural road systems, the level of service C is often the goal. More urban areas, level of service D. And there's a couple locations actually in Shelton on Wallace and Eland where level of service, or actually Old Olympic Highway, where level of service E is acceptable because it's so congested, they can't afford to make it any better. And so they've accepted a lower level of performance just strictly from a practical standpoint. What we're seeing though is like on Johns Prairie Road, we're seeing some problem locations there north of Johns Prairie Road, the Agate Road north on State Highway. So Agate Road in the county and on the State Highway adjacent to Agate Road near Grapeview View Loop Road, south of Belfair Street and south of Lake Flora. These are kind of existing problems, and they're largely related to intersections in this area. Now, things like the Belfair bypass or the freight corridor will make a big difference in Belfair. So some of these are just going to go away because of things that are already planned, and I'll get to that in a minute. Then we have recommendations for addressing some of these other locations. And talking about Belfair, this is looking out. So what you saw previously was 2025 analysis. This is 2045 analysis. And here's the specific intersections that we looked at all along the highway, all of these various locations. The real problem ones are kind of here, Belfair, Old Belfair Highway at Northeast Newkirk Road, and then at Ridge Point, Clifton, SR3, and Romance Hill Road. Those all would be in failure. F, level service F, the worst that you can get. A is ideal. Probably unachievable in many cases just because of cost. C would be the minimum we would accept in a rural area, D in an urban area, but we're getting E's and F's, which is indicative of a congestion problem. And so there are suggestions that are made as a part of the Belfair Planned Action environmental document that was done to support development of that project, the Freight Corridor project. These are the improvements that it suggests. So at these locations, they're building roundabouts, improves operations to acceptable levels. So basically everything that was identified in the Belfair Planned Action EIS and as a part of the project makes the problems that we had anticipated go away. We also looked at the Shelton urban growth area. So the county road system immediately outside of the city of Shelton, but in the urban growth area. Couple of problem locations at the US 101 Railroad Avenue ramp, the southbound ramps at Shelton Springs Road and at Johns Prairie Road and SR3 were problem locations with failing levels of service when we get out in the future year. The Railroad Avenue area, both the northbound ramps, southbound ramps, and the Deegan Road intersection, which is immediately adjacent to the interchange, all we feel need to be further studied to come up with an optimal solution. That's Coffee Creek development area. As that area grows, it's actually going to build a road that connects into the southern part of Shelton and provides additional access to 101 via Railroad Avenue. So there's more detail that really needs to be studied in terms of the specifics of the land development, where it is, what it is, how it's going to connect, what kind of specific things should be built here. That's kind of above and beyond the level of detail we can get to in a transportation plan. Well, we also looked at Shelton Springs at 101 and recommended a roundabout. I know from the standpoint of safety that the county is interested in building a roundabout on Dayton Airport Road or SR 102 at US 101, and then also at Johns Prairie Road if a roundabout were to be built there. That's going to be a very challenging location because of the topography and the road coming down off the hill, but it serves as a northern access, a north side access for the Olympic Heights development when that grows, and there's pretty substantial development that's anticipated there over the next 20 years. So that's going to be an important project. And then just kind of moving quickly through this, we looked at Allen and a couple of intersections along SR3 and Allen and made some suggestions about Lakeland Drive for a roundabout and North Bay Road for a roundabout to fix the problems. The roundabouts are the DOT's preferred intersection improvement. We could do signals, we could do roundabouts. Their default is to do a roundabout, and that's largely because when you think about the lifetime operation of a signal, it's expensive. And maybe 10 years ago, I was working on a project with the DOT, and they told me, figure $4,000 a year just to maintain a signal. That's the electricity, changing the bulbs, dealing with the issues that you run into and just keeping a signal operational. When you think about that thing being there for 50 years, that turns into a lot of money that you don't have with a roundabout. The maintenance, ongoing maintenance and operation costs of a roundabout are substantially less. So when you talk about like least cost planning and effective, efficient use of funding over the long term, the roundabout begins to make a lot of sense. It's also about 75% safer than a traffic signal. The Insurance Institute of America has done studies on that from the insurance perspective, and that was a conclusion that they came up with. So those were recommended in that location. Couple of other locations here, Agate Road, which I've mentioned, looking at a roundabout at that location, Mason Lake Road, and then the intersection here. This one didn't actually need anything. We studied it because the county had an interest in seeing what was going on there, but it would operate acceptably over the long term. So there's a number of improvement projects that came out of the technical analysis that we did. This all moves forward then into a financial plan where we do cost estimates for all these projects that I mentioned. And when we look at a 6-year and a 20-year forecast of the county's revenues and expenditures, trying to have more revenue than you have expenditure would be ideal, particularly if you have a program of improvement projects that you need to build above and beyond the maintenance and operation of your system. Two of the big challenges that the county is facing is the long-term deferred maintenance on the local road system. And there's really no dedicated source of funding other than the local road fund, the gas tax fund, which hasn't been increased in years. The dollar value of what it can buy goes down every year because of inflation. And there's really no other way of addressing the transportation improvement needs, the operation maintenance and other improvement needs for the local roads other than that. So that's a challenge, how to figure out how to do what they need to do on the local road system, how to manage it in the most effective way possible. And then there's a lot of culverts. And when I was talking about the bridge report that the county does every year, about 3,500 culverts in the county that they maintain, 42 are going to need to be replaced at a cost of about $21 million. For which, again, the road fund is the only funding source. Most of these are not eligible for salmon recovery funding. The state does provide money for locations where there is a salmon recovery effort underway. Roads that are not local roads, those collectors and arterial roads, if you remember when I was talking about how we've classified streets by their function, those are eligible for state funding assistance and federal funding assistance, so they don't depend solely on the road fund. But the local road system is very dependent on that, and it's a limited source of funding. And then I mentioned also the last part of the plan is the strategic action plan, and this really talks about either ongoing work that the county does on a regular basis or things that they have upcoming that they would like to address with respect to the transportation system. The rural neighborhood center strategy, creating more walkable, people-oriented communities, like we were talking a little bit about Allen. But what are other things that can be done to create, more less auto-dominated and more walkable communities in the smaller rural centers in the neighborhoods throughout the county? Building that freight corridor study and its connecting road systems, Romance Hill Road and Log Yard Road in particular, are part of the plan. Doing a more in-depth review of the bicycle facilities. I mentioned the county's practice of widening shoulders where they feel there's going to be benefit because of either consistency with trails plans or other plans, or they're hearing from bicycle advocacy groups or others in the public about, we'd like to ride here, we'd like to get access to these trails, those sorts of things. But to actually step back and do kind of a more thorough, more comprehensive look at where they should be prioritizing what they spend on bicycle facilities, where they should be focusing the shoulder widening to get the most benefit. Their ongoing pavement management system. I had talked a little bit about how it's really important to actually maintain the system at the right time. That's what this graphic is showing here. It's a little complicated to read, but the bottom axis is years, so 5, 10, 15 years. And this is very poor condition, poor, fair, good, excellent. And what happens is, as you go over time, your pavement quality begins to drop off, and you get to a point where there's a very steep drop-off curve, and you got about 75% of the life, the useful life of the road left, but it drops very quickly after that. This is the sweet spot. You want to maintain the system with lower cost chip seals or other kind of overlays, other sorts of improvements that will maintain that basic road pavement structure, and do that before you get beyond this point. Because when you get beyond this point, then you're into major reconstruction where you're tearing up the road, rebuilding the subbase, repaving. So what you might spend $1 on above that line, you may spend $6 to $10. So $100,000 improvement becomes a $600 to $1 million improvement if you let that maintenance go on too far and your pavement begins to seriously deteriorate. So they're on top of this, and this is how they look at managing the overall pavement condition in the county. Looking at safety improvements as opportunities arise, and then an ongoing effective road management system dealing with stormwater issues, vegetation clearance, marking, signing, road pavement, dealing with emergencies, things of that nature. These are kind of the heart and guts of their operational program and their work program for the coming years. And that's all I have in the way of a presentation. And I think you wanted to hold questions on that, but if anybody, I don't know, Melissa, what the process might be for me to respond to comments. We just, I guess I'd follow your lead on that, however you want to handle that. But I'm happy to talk more about this.
Thanks, ma'am. I think we're, anything else from staff? We'll jump, and what we're gonna do is hold on questions at this time. We're gonna jump into public comment on
Okay.
the drafts. So at this time, we'll now start public comment with regards to the public hearing process for the draft comprehensive plan and the associated documents. And Marissa walked us through a little earlier. All attending are just reminded that we are here to listen to everyone. Okay, anyone who desires to make a statement, and in that listening, please, is focused on helping our county grow. We have a variety of different ideas that come in here, and to quote someone from about 16 months ago, we are somewhat trying to seek one elegant plan to pull it all together. And therefore, as we listen, I just ask everyone to remain silent. Please make no verbal or don't make any verbal or nonverbal gestures. Don't clap, don't boo. Let's just listen to what people have to say. So with that, people will be allowed 3 minutes to speak their mind. All speakers are to address the PAC, not members of the public. And please start by providing who you are and generally where you live to protect your personal privacy. Please don't tell us your home address. We don't want to know. Okay. So anyone, I see Mr. Ackley already has his hand up. So Mr. Dick.
I can make a suggestion. Can we go between Zoom and in person just to make sure if somebody needs to leave, they can do so?
I'm comfortable with that. Do you board members have any? Okay, we'll do a few in person, then we'll go to Zoom and go from there. So with that, go.
My name's Jacob Ackley. I live on the Arcadia Peninsula in kind of the middle, of the woods. But this last summer has been concerning for me as I live in a spot that is at risk to fires. And I'd like the county to have a plan in place. So if a fire starts in my neighborhood, I do not have to worry about the smoke as much. I do not have to worry about people being able to come help me if for whatever reason we are unable to leave our home because the fire is surrounding us. I'd like policies to be in place so that anywhere in Mason County does not have to worry as little as possible about wildfires, because we cannot prevent wildfires, but we can do our best to fight them. And I'm not saying it's easy.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ackley. Anyone else in the room? Mr. Ramirez. You go right straight down the aisle there.
Yep. My backpack will let me go. My name is Alan Ramirez. I live in Shelton. Gladly. Uh, as someone who has lived in Mason County my entire life, mostly in the city of Shelton, but a little bit outside of that, I'd like to see the climate chapter sort of pass as is. I feel very confident in the policies that are written in it right now because I know that it will help us ensure funding because we can't start to address the the impacts of climate change until we actually have these policies in place. Because if we want to seek funding, which we need from the state and federal government, we can't ask for that if if our policies don't show that we have an interest in that. I think that if we do pass these policies, it will show the federal and state government that the people here in Mason County wants to go above and beyond what is required of us, and that we want to work hard to ensure that the environment that we live in is going to be, uh, I guess, healthy to live in for generations to come, especially for those who've been here for generations upon generations. You know, some people have been here a couple hundred years, some people have been here a couple thousand years, and a lot of species here have been here for millions of years. So, yeah, I just like to say I think that the climate chapter should pass as is because I really think we need the policies in place if we want to get any sort of actual good work done here in Mason County. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Alex. Great, thank you, Alex. Yes, ma'am. Next.
Okay, so I'm Mimi Smith. I live in Shelton. And the comments that you have for the climate proposals, some of them are really interesting. Particularly something that I'm concerned about is um the oh on section 10.8, how you said adding the new policy to only support climate change or resilience projects that produce measurable results. 90% of funding goes to measurable results. Honestly, I really think that you should stay with the main Washington state model because we really realistically need as much we kind of need to diversify the methods that we use to help protect our climate. And we're not going to get that, and we're not going to innovate and we're not going to make progress on new ways if we only stick to a couple of different things that we know are proven to work, but aren't necessarily going to be the most effective if we don't try other ones.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Well, 1 second, we'll get you next, Miguel. Anyone in Zoom space would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. We don't see any right now, but we'll come back to Zoom. Next, we'll go to Miguel. And I just do, for everyone, I really like seeing Miguel here because just as some of us at this table have went over and sat down with the city of Shelton in their planning process, we now have a city council member here in Miguel at the county side. And I think that interface is really good. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Well, that was my topic today was how do we work complementary together? How do we work together from the city and the county's perspective. I would like to ask this panel to be forward-thinking and aspirational about what we ask for and what we put down on a comprehensive plan. This is a 20-year guide to the future. A lot of these youth in this room are going to be just getting to their peak during this 20-year time. So I'd like to make sure that all the voices are included. Thank you very much, Randy, for letting me speak the last time. I left this panel a little angry the last time I was here. I want to apologize for that. However, I do want to make the point that we need to be inclusive on what information we bring into this room, and that we need to look at not just what we know in this room, but what experts from the outside know in the world as well. So we need to act locally, think globally, and think about how the city and the county can work together in the future. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Miguel. Earl, I saw your hand up, but if someone else wants to go, I'm good.
Warm it up.
This is recording. This is under the housing section. There's a section in,
Name real quick, man.
oh, Terry, and then the commercial area. Under H 3.7, it says, consider an affordable housing property tax levy. And I feel we keep going back to the same well. As a retiree, currently, our valuation keeps going up because of the limited housing supply we have. For an example, my neighbor's very old 70s trailer home has increased $10,000 in valuation, and it is not, it's fairly limited. So I think that we should challenge that. And in the future, if that's something wants to come to the voters, we can bring it to the voters, but I don't think that levies and levy lid lifts should be considered at this time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Morrell. Ready, baby?
My name is Peggy Morrell. I live in Union. All views and opinions expressed are my own. First of all, I want to acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that has gone into this comp plan since February of 2023. And that's on both sides of the podium. So deep respect for that effort. Tonight, I want to speak about section 2.5, community engagement. On paper, it reads as a very polished and seamless process. But for anyone who's attended even a handful of meetings in this chamber over the last almost 2 years, the reality is more complicated. There was a learning curve around the rules and standards of taking public comment. And despite extensive outreach by our 2 engagement partners, who focus specifically on residents often underrepresented in the planning process, it's difficult to see where these voices show up in the plan. For example, the community vision statement shared with survey shared with Mason County residents was intended to inform the vision statement. It received 125 responses. The community engagement section tells us that Mason County Climate Justice and the Economic Development Council collectively reached close to 1,400 residents, including more than 1,000 who completed and returned surveys on affordable housing and climate. So why does the draft vision statement remain unchanged from almost a decade ago? I've heard it said in this chamber, and not by a member of the public, that the vision statement was the least important section of the comp plan, followed by, so why are we spending so much time on it? Community input on a vision for future growth and change in Mason County is the most important part of the comp plan. All the policies and goals, that you've been working on so hard for the last many months are how we get there. The vision is where we're going, informed hopefully by the people who work, live, and raise families here. My point isn't to diminish the work that's been done. Public engagement is hard, it's messy, and there's always more to learn. So why not tell that story in section 2.5? We had some wins and we had some misses. That's the real story. I believe the people of Mason County know when they've been heard, so please write a vision statement that reflects that.
Thank you. Plan.
I'm Linda Links. I live in South Mason County. I got really excited and happy to learn that Mason County was complying with the legislative mandate to include climate change in our comp plan update due to passing of House Bill 1181. I own a small shellfish farm on Totten Inlet, which is threatened by climate change, sea level rise, warming temperatures, and ocean acidification. So is there anything that the Planning Commission can do about that? Is it too late to change the climate? Maybe we've reached a tipping point. I don't know. Scientists can probably tell us. But fortunately, we live in Mason County. And we have many acres of forest land, which sequester carbon. Our trees are cooling our temperature. The Department of Natural Resources owns many of these forests, lands, and manages them for economic benefit. But some of our neighboring counties have specifically and successfully told the DNR to save and protect these mature and biodiverse forests from sale and logging. The Board of County Commissioners and the Planning Commission, Advisory Commission, have an opportunity with the comp plan update to make policy to allow our natural forest workhorses to continue the work of cooling our planet. This document that we've been working on does a great job of describing Mason County and how we adapt to all sorts of hazards and things. But I think we should do better in this county. I think we should make better policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna pause this for a minute so I can take a note. Sorry. All right.
Well, we're skipping your movement.
No.
Okay.
Next. Mr. Security, come on up, Kevin.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Kevin Shooty, Mason County Economic Development Council. Just wanted to say we're in support of the economic development element of the comp plan as it's been worked on. I really appreciate in that regard the alignment between the county's planning document and the document that the city of Shelton is considering as well. And so it touches on all of our priorities, including workforce development, housing, infrastructure development, and of course, business retention and expansion in the community. So being able to call out those pillars of our work at the Economic Development Council is really critical. And frankly, the entire document that you're considering in one way, shape, or form is an actual economic development plan for our community. And so while we have certainly opinions on other elements of it tonight, I just wanted to speak in favor of the economic development chapter and wish you all the best in the rest of your deliberations on this. And I'm sure we'll see you again on the 29th. So,
Thank you, Mr. Shooty. I'm going to flip over to Zoom space. Is there anyone in Zoom space that would like to make a public comment in this public hearing? If so, please raise your hand. And little yellow hand in Zoom space. Seeing none, I'll come back to the room. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Pink shirt in the back.
Yes, that.
Hello, everybody. I am Sheila Corson. I am the Public Information Officer over at Basin PUD 3. And first, I want to, again, like others have said, thank you for all of your work for a very long time on this plan and for the collaboration I've been able to have with staff, as well as good conversations with some of the planning advisory members. So thank you for that. If there are ever any other questions or concerns, please continue to collaborate with us. We're happy to work with that. Like Kevin said, very supportive of the economic development chapter, and got a lot of good updates and information in the utility section as well. And as it stands for those sections, in our opinion, they're looking good. So we appreciate all of that work together, and are looking forward to the next step of the process. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Saw another hand in the back of the Rose.
My name is Kirsty Rose and I live over in the Lake Leonard area. I'd like to say that I live on 5 acres of former commercial logging land that was clear cut and reseeded about 20 years ago. And I find myself regularly wondering what my land would have looked like in its prime with its original trees and undergrowth. I've been left with piles of clues in the form of half-burned stumps and roots, and some as large as our tractor. And some days I feel robbed that I'll never know how wondrous their bodies must have been, or how I'll never have a chance to experience the chill of their shaded canopy in the heat of summer. I've gained glimpses of the magic that used to be held on my land through my elderly neighbors reminiscing, and of her years of childhood play, and how her brothers used to chase her in circles around the trees as they pretended they were sleeping giants. I've heard the stories she shared and the photos she saved of the incredible old growth forests that we used to have throughout the county that my generation and future generations will never get to experience again. In section 3.5.1 of the draft under forest resources, it says that impacts associated with forestry operations include erosion and sedimentation, noise from machinery and vehicles, fugitive dust, and the visual impacts of harvested areas. The State Department, it also says the State Department of Natural Resources is responsible for regulating these impacts. It goes on in 3.5.2 to say that the county intends to cooperate with state agencies and area tribes to protect historically and culturally important areas. And yet DNR continues to allow the sale of legacy forest lands that have had numerous local and tribal representatives argue against logging while citing historical and cultural importance. And yet the visual impact of logging continues to affect our county through thousands of acres being clear cut. Old and legacy growth forests make up less than 14% of our state's forests, and yet it continues to be a fight to conserve what's left. My 20-year growth will never compare to the canopy of century-old trees. And I worry that if we leave our county in the hands of only state agencies, and if we do not provide verbiage in our comprehensive plan that makes us a participant in the care of our land, that future generations, my future children, will never have a chance to fall in love with the beauty of our land. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Vicky Boss, and I've lived Pasadena Island for 45 years or so. I'm just a blowing. I was looking over the comments for PAC discussion, and there's a comment. It's in section appendix C that says do not include the CPAC, the Climate Policy Advisory Team. It says do not include their input. It says it was developed by a select group of like-minded individuals, excluding alternative and relevant views. So I was just going to say that I disagree with that, that if this is supposed to be public input, involving public engagement, that
this group that's, it said here that, they're, they followed the Washington Department of Commerce procedural guidelines. So they took the effort to meet and to research and to give their opinions and their input, that I don't think that it should be disregarded. It should be included. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. You have you? Yeah, we have, okay, we're gonna jump to Zoom because we have a hand up, so Legacy Forest Defense Coalition, I see you have a hand up, so if you would like to speak, this would be a great time.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joshua Wright. I live in Union, and I'm speaking for the Legacy Forest Defense Coalition today. One of the couple concerns in the comprehensive plan 13.5.1, it takes as a presupposition that Mason County is economically built on timber. While that might have been true 150 years ago, it's not true anymore. Of the largest employers in Mason County, timber is not there. I think there's one timber employer that's in the top 10, but none in the top 5. And the plan also does not acknowledge the impact of logging. It will acknowledge the visual impacts of logging, erosion, sedimentation, noise from machinery, which is somewhat arbitrary, vehicles, dust, and visual impacts. It doesn't acknowledge the carbon emission impacts of logging. That's something that needs to be included in that plan because that is kind of the major impact. The fact that the comprehensive plan deals with adaptation to climate change when looking at like how does it affect our roads and how does it affect our energy infrastructure. It's a bit of a cop out to not look at how do the actions in Mason County affect the climate, because that in a way is also an extremely important dynamic at play. And one of the biggest emission sectors in Mason County is from timber, and that should be acknowledged in the plan. And the county should, at the very least, have a inclination to do something about that, even if it is true that the Department of Natural Resources is the regulatory body for private timberlands. It doesn't mean that the county can't acknowledge those impacts and seek to mitigate those impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. A. Anyone else in Zoom while we're in Zoom space here? Don't see a hand going up, so we'll come back to the room. We'll come back to Zoom in a few minutes. Back to the room.
Hello, my name is Michaela. I live in Shelton. I just wanted to say in previous, it's actually way echoey right here. It normally is. Okay, in previous meetings, there have been statements on how much hotter it is in other areas of the country or the world, and using it to imply that this isn't an impact in Mason County or just Washington State. We look at the past decades of weather and heat trends, 100+ degree heat waves and weather in the summer is not normal. I heard a really good phrase today that said simmering cooks just as efficiently as boiling. And just because our climate is as hot as others doesn't mean it's not damaging to our community and our environment. This doesn't even account for the fact that AC units and AC in a home are not required by the state and is often a privilege, especially in our community. When considering climate policy, I think we need to keep this in mind, and that taking into account that this is really damaging to our community. And I think further restricting different components in the climate policy is just digging us into a deeper hole. Hope you guys keep that in mind.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Michaela. Anyone else in the room? Ms. Gale.
Hello, my name's Julianne Gale. I live just outside Belfair. And I was really struck with what SCJ Alliance spoke to today about life cycle costs. What's true about roads is also true in terms of climate impact preparation. And I think it's really important that we keep as many of the policies as possible that the CPAT, SCJ Alliance and staff came up with together and proposed and are currently in the plan. I see a lot of PAC comments preparing to delete many things, and I think we need to keep as many as possible so that we have the flexibility to address them as a community over the next 2 decades. Some direct responses, which I probably won't have time to get through all of them, and so I will send an email to go on. I don't think we need to, I think it's important to keep protect and restore, not just restore, because there's lands that are already in good shape that are very important for climate, environmental, and cultural reasons. I don't think anything should be removed because we don't already have the money to do it. We have no idea what's coming forward in the future, and also spending $1 now may prevent us from spending $500 in future years. There's also suggestion, I apologize if the policy numbers are incorrect. I was comparing to this draft, the September draft, and some of the policy numbers refer to a prior draft, so I'm doing my best trying to understand the link. There's a suggestion. There was a suggestion to delete policy C 6.1, which I believe had the line about prioritizing overburdened communities. And there was a suggestion that that could be deleted because it's already addressed the hazard mitigation plan. And the hazard mitigation plan does not prioritize actions that benefit overburdened communities, which is a requirement of the RCW, so that policy should remain. There's a suggestion to delete a policy related to providing training programs to help people be in climate smart positions, or to retrain people who are in climate impacted positions. And there's a comment saying that that topic should be addressed to schools, not county government. Schools are not the only place that people get training. The policy should remain because, as Mr. Kevin Schutte already said, this is an economic development plan. Providing training and having skilled workers here in the county means we don't have a brain drain of our young people leaving to find work somewhere else. And it means that people who grew up here, know the land, know the communities, know the people, can step into the important work that's necessary to make sure that we all thrive and survive in the future. There is a suggestion to remove outdoor workers. Outdoor workers are extremely impacted by climate change. That's an example of a vulnerable population. Let's be honest. Okay, well, I'll have to send more emails about all of those things in the future, but more to come. The overall point is, please protect the policies that already exist in the plan. Please include them and keep them. Please include the appendix. The more flexibility that we have to handle things together as a community, the more possibility to receive the funding, the better it'll go.
Just a question for staff. With regards to sending in written comments, once this public hearing, once the public comment phase of this public hearing is over, our written comments addressed, because the comment period will have ended.
Yeah. If you do choose to close it tonight, then it will be closed for the PAC.
Okay, thank you. Next. Yes, sir. Mr. Porter. Come on up, give us your best.
Right. Hello, my name is Anderson Porter, and I'm from the Hillcrest neighborhood, and I have asthma. And recently, with the wildfire smoke, it's been difficult to do anything really outside. And with our large amount of elderly people in our community, they're also high risk for wildfire smoke. And a few months ago, I do remember the PAC mentioning the lack of importance of wildfire smoke. Like reaction, like planning to limit wildfire smoke. And I think it's important to add more or keep in the parts about making sure wildfire smoke is a priority to address, and maybe even adding testers to make sure that the air quality information is displayed publicly. And I do agree with some of the other comments about keeping a lot of the things in place because they were already written and addressed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Porter. Anyone else in the room? Excellent. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Jacqueline Early. I'm the Community Relations Manager for Sierra Pacific Industries. I just want to thank the hard work that this group has done over this past year and a half. Tonight, there's been a lot of great conversation. It includes environmental, it includes housing, it includes clean air, it includes forestry, it includes fire. Please know that sustainably managed harvests and proper forest management is included in that conversation. And we appreciate the fact that you understand and acknowledge the hard work that the Board of Natural Resources and Department of Natural Resources is doing to help set standards and practices of harvest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherwood. Yes, sir. I mean, if I'm missing somebody's hand, this at some point stand up if I can. I do not want to miss anyone tonight, and we'll double check Zoom space here again too.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Michael Sutros. I live in Belfair, Trails and Lake specifically, so outside of the urban growth area. I'm a retired teacher. I think it's very important that youth have been involved in this, and I want to thank and acknowledge them for stepping up because it is indeed their future that we are talking about. Some of my concerns are that we need to improve our mass transit. I do appreciate Mason Transit. I love that they will pick up people from their homes and take them to wherever they need to go or to make a transfer. That's a great service. As an elder, and I'm looking to see, maybe a few years before I can't drive anymore. I need to get around to appointments. So that's a really important thing. I would like to encourage that we have Sunday transit. We have a couple of million people in Seattle, Tacoma, who might want to come here. And if we had Sunday transit available to them, they can make those connections without having to drive to this area. The amount of money coming from tourism is huge and it can be enhanced. I'm also really appreciative that someone is here from PUD3. I really like that we have affordable energy rates. And I'm concerned that much of our energy comes from water power, which in turn threatens our salmon. I think we need to invest much more in solar energy. We do have abundant solar, and in parts of the world that are even less affected by solar energy, they're getting a lot of their energy source from solar. If we had solar on all of our public buildings, as PUD does in one of their public buildings, wow, the amount of energy that we could be generating would be enormous. I'm also very concerned about protecting our forests, and I want to see our forests protected not only for themselves, but also again for helping the salmon. Some of the clear cuts are much too close to streams. And I know there's a set aside that DNR says is enough, but I've seen some of these clear cuts on slopes and a little bit of vegetation down at the bottom is not going to protect streams. So I think we need wider margins. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room? Anyone else on Zoom? Anyone on Zoom space would like to make a comment here at this public hearing? Seeing none on Zoom and seeing none, is that fair? Are there any hands in the back? See none in the room. Hey, gentlemen, I'm inclined to close public comment. I'm also sensitive to the fact that, we are. There's a lot of balances going on right now, and I realize I'm slightly off script. For all involved, I'm slightly off script, I got that. Per the public schedule, with so far in 18 months, we haven't met. We owe a deadline, we owe a product here in 15 days. And, there's been any number of people that have expressed concerns with regards to a lot of elements to that. We've also had people express the desire to provide additional comment. And I'm looking at the scope of what's in front of us just from tonight, much less other things that have already come in. You want to keep public comment open, or do we close it?
We're fine to keep it open.
Yeah.
To get the written, especially from written wise.
And let's try and do we provide on the written comment. I'm thinking 48 hours. Well, I know. In fairness, I'm
just leave it at it.
Well, no, but in fairness, we're gonna have to, whatever is provided is gonna then have to be sorted through. Sure. And then when do we sort through this, recognizing that unless there's an extension, when we meet on the 29th, there's 30 hours to develop a solution.
Okay.
I'm looking at, the box that we have as currently printed, been put in, which is not a good box. It's
Then, I mean, it's been publicly announced and we're to take public comment. Then I'm cool with saying, let's set it up, for 48 hours for written comments and then that closes. Because I agree there are people that indicated they have written comments and they got them, so let's get them and get them done.
And any comments or discussion on that?
So that would be close the business on Wednesday?
Right.
5 PM Wednesday afternoon. Let's close the business.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. So we will.
I'm gonna say, do we need a motion to do that?
Please.
You're all right. So Jeff?
I'll make a motion that we keep public comment open, written comment for 48 hours.
No, close the business.
5 PM.
5 PM.
Wednesday the 17th.
Wednesday the 17th.
And public comment is, just for clarification, is to be delivered to staff, and that would be Mariah as the primary valley button, is that correct? Marissa is to Marissa, courtesy Mariah, that way there's a little backup there. Okay. We have a motion on the table, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, that motion passes. So public comment will be open till for another 46 hours. Okay. Written comment only. Right. Questions for staff from the PAC, is that still on? Did that get removed?
This is still kind of something for you, so if you had questions for Anne specifically, she's still online, or I would say all of the questions for Marissa and Cal.
So
can we do something, can we not? I don't know. Do you have questions?
Let me. Does anyone want to take 5 minutes for the break? That's one. If we open it up for questions, is it questions specific towards transportation or more towards the plan overall? Either could go on.
Well, we've heard from the public.
Yeah.
About the entire thing.
That's where I think, yeah, so.
So the specific question would be directed only towards the transportation plan.
Okay.
You guys? Anybody?
Cool. You good with it? Okay. Anyone have questions for Ann?
I just need to go, a little more time to go over it and write down my own notes. I think I'll prep for the next meeting.
I had a quick question.
And
yes. Part of your slide, one of your slides, you talked about you need like 21 million over the next 3 to 5 years that can only be funded. That can only be funded by the road fund. Do we know how much of the road fund revenue do we get every year?
I would have to look that up. I don't have that off the top of my head. It is spoken to in the document, but I'd have to look it up.
Okay. But the vibe I got was it's not sufficient to cover the future expenses. Is that the feeling?
Well, I think that the challenge really is how to do what you need to accomplish with the available funding in the road fund, because there's way more need than there is road fund available for the local road system. And one of the challenges that the staff has been pointing out in conversations with me is that there's a lot of culverts and it's going to be very expensive and they need to be repaired in a fairly short order. And they don't quite yet know how they're going to do that. They'll figure it out, I'm sure, but it's a challenge. And that's one of the things that the transportation plan speaks to.
So the $500,000 per culvert, is that a solid number?
I'm sorry?
Is the $500,000 per culvert?
1.5.
It's an average is yeah, it's about $500,000 on an average. Some will be less, some will be more, but that's an average.
So from a tip cap perspective, there's some challenges here. So the gas tax per gallon, as we know, as citizens, has gone up. It's up went up 6 cents not that long ago. But from a county perspective, the amount of dollars we're receiving actually is slightly going down. People are driving less miles, they have more efficient vehicles, or they're driving electric vehicles or a hybrid. Bottom line is less gas is being purchased, and therefore less gas tax dollars is being accumulated. So that now, so while the dollar value is not going up, the prices to do things are. So actually there's a net negative in here as far as buying power. That's one. Okay. Looking high level, I think I'm not even gonna quote when you look at total culverts of the 3,500, page 36 of the transportation plan says $1.5 million per culvert. As we replace culverts, they also become bridges. Okay, so yeah, no, you see where I'm going. So as soon as something's a bridge, it requires inspection on an annual basis to maintain safety for citizens. Okay, so as we start to add bridges, we need to also add staff. And that's not only engineering staff for the inspection side, but also the maintenance staff, the maintenance dollars for materials and equipment and consumables to do that. So there's this other piece out here that isn't addressed.
So that's the unanticipated consequence of the culvert being replaced.
Yeah, and a lot of these culverts, and so a few months ago in TIPCAP, there was a really good discussion, but the short of it is we're finding a culvert or so every week or two, something we weren't aware of. And every fish bearing culvert ultimately needs to be replaced into something that's broader and ultimately becomes a bridge because of how it's a box construct. The other thing is culverts typically have 75 to 100-year lifespan. Guess what's all coming due in this next 20-year period? About 3,400 of them. Yeah, and so this is this problem is significantly larger than the 40 or so that were discussed in the briefing. You know, and that's where you see the tip cap number of $5 billion, not million, but billion coming in.
Mhm.
That's, you know,
I really liked your graphic. Showing the downward curve and then there's a spot and then it dramatically decreases.
The maintenance program, yeah, the timing of maintenance. Mhm.
All these culverts, where they land on your curve, what's the distribution?
Yeah, that was actually specifically for pavement condition. So I mean, the extent to which you've got pavement over a culvert, that would be applicable, but the steel structure of the culvert isn't, it's a different equation.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole PCI process has been in place for the last 40 years and as a very common practice. You know?
Oh, okay.
So it's.
What is PCI? What's that?
Pavement Condition Index.
Oh, okay.
You got on your estimate.
That one, and I actually know something about small PCI. Other questions on transportation?
No, although I appreciate this presentation because you pushed it through fast, but it was concentrated. It was loaded with more than we could maybe absorb, but at least we got through the whole thing in about 20 minutes and there's questions, but we'll read through it and digest it as time goes on. So, but I'm appreciative of the way it was presented. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I was trying to just give you kind of an idea of the structure of it. So if you'd want to spend more time and actually read through it, you kind of know where it starts and what's in the middle and where it ends, where it's going.
If you would please provide the slides to staff through whatever the appropriate.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just want to thank you, and I've reviewed the City of Shelton presentation you gave. I think it was actually in that meeting. I have seen the presentation you gave at Tip Cap, and I really, just as a group, and Miguel, you can chime in too, but I feel that the approach made between the city and the county is tied out. Now, where those boundaries are and how those overlap, still haven't looked at that level of detail. But what you saw here at the city level actually is the advantage of a city. It's smaller area, more focused, could get down to literally some intersections and stoplights at times, and you saw some of that. Okay, that's what the city council will deal with. We'll deal with it at the edges and that interface point. But I thought it was real good how it's tied out, and I liked the presentation, all three of them.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very well. The staff has been wonderful for us to work with from our perspective as well, with county staff and city staff. And I think they work together really well. We had a lot of good communications. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anything else in transportation? Okay. I think any other questions for staff on any other? All right, so I say we move on to recognizing there is still potential public comment to come in. But we have 18 months of comments. Okay. Many of these, there are some new topics tonight, but we've also heard some very common topics come back up tonight. This is for many of these, this is not oh wow, that's new. There were some, but not many. Okay. And so with that, where are we headed? So I sort of opened it up for a discussion on, okay, we have a comp plan, 5 appendices in front of us, and Leo with recommendation of some sort, at least in theory, next 15 days.
Well, I can say this personally.
I'm trying just listening for a while and get around the table.
If you call it, from my perspective, whether you agree or disagree with the different points and the different things, points to the whole plan. Well, that's important. We're missing some structure in this as far as things that should be determined, so to speak, as far as the capacity for capital facilities. Just like now we're hearing about this big chunk of change, a requirement over here on roads. I know I've testified in TIPCAP in the past that, you know, we're not keeping up with the roads. You have 640 miles or whatever. And there hasn't been a road in this county we haven't replaced in 100 years, done, heavy work to. And therefore, if we're not rebuilding 5 miles, 6 miles of road a year, we're going backwards. So my point is this, is that to me, this plan isn't a plan yet until you can get these other pieces tied to it. And I'm personally challenged with the fact that you have tables and figures and different things through here that aren't even reconciled between each other. And so if you ask me to vote and advising this for the board, the county commissioner to accept, I would have to say no. It's not there, it's not ready. It's not, in my opinion, it's not that hard a thing to do, but you have to focus through that. And tie it all out. And it's not. The next thing is just between the PAC members that submitted questions, there's 240 of them. Even what the staff is recommending for PAC discussion boils down to 30 of those 240 for what they're saying for discussion. When looking at that group, that's going to take a meeting.
A long meeting.
At best. And this is assuming, we haven't even addressed the other things that are being presented, okay? So arguments between, I use the word argument, I don't mean arguments, I mean statements, discussions.
Yeah.
Between us PAC members is gonna be a process just going through those 30 there. Then of the 240, maybe 25% have been addressed satisfactorily. But there's a number of them, I'm gonna say at least 15 to 20%, which means about 35, 40 of them that the answer misses the question we're asking. It appears. It may be perspective, it may be framework. All I'm getting at is, okay, so then we had that discussion on that group. Again, that's this PAC. And do we agree or disagree, change, whatever? So I'm thinking that, at the bare minimum, you're gonna have at least 1/3 of that, well, almost 1/2 of that, which is about 120, where there's gonna be discussion. And we may say, okay, leave it as is, we may change it, any number of things. So, and then another point that comes to mind is we go through these chapters in their local universe, so to speak, of the chapter, of the element. But then we start putting it together and it's like, holy crap, this doesn't stand.
It doesn't flow together.
Right. And there's, it seems like we have that problem with the climate side, we have that problem with the capital facilities side, we have that problem even in housing. There's a statement in there. I brought up a question about one of the tables. And, and one of the tables then just got removed. That was kind of the answer. Well, the interesting thing about that one table is that it showed. So we had the statement that says, here's the historical so on and so forth about how Mason County has grown, and this is why we need to do this. And the statement's dead ass wrong. I don't mean just partially, it's dead wrong. If you use the word historically, then all the rest is, garbage. Because historically, this county has grown rural-wise. It's, numbers between 60 to 75% rural. And I even challenged the fact that, we have this growth number and we've been hitting our growth numbers somewhat ahead of the state, sometimes behind the state. But the interesting part, especially in the last 20 to 30 years, is why do we have the growth? It isn't because of our urban growth areas. I mean, it's changed, but the city of Shelton had I think it was 18 month, or maybe it was even 24 months, where the aggregate total of housing was -1 over that 24-month period. So I just feel there's a lot of conflicting data that it hasn't been reconciled out, that doesn't create an accurate. You can have all these policies, you can have all these goals, but if you have the wrong premise, how you've created it, doesn't matter. And people ask, well, it's just a plan, it's, it gets modified along the way. The way I'm wired is a plan should be close to what you're trying to do. Otherwise, why do this whole thing, this whole exercise? If you're not going to try to even get close to it, then it's a lie to the public, it's a lie to everything else included. So, that's my 2 bits.
How does that compare to the previous comp plan? Do those problems still exist? Have there been improvements to the current comp plan? How much development has happened since the previous one? And is this current comp plan in its current form, is it better and more effective than it used to be?
I can't actually judge that. My observation is, as time goes on and we gain knowledge, that's my problem. Because as I gain knowledge, it seems like we've done. To me, it seems almost the same, even though we've done more. Meaning, I addressed the issue a while back about if there was nothing in our comp plan on our land use addressing wildland fires. Nothing. There's a little bleep box over in the emergency response, but really there, it's only identifying what has happened. It has no solutions about going forward or, dealing with it. My other problem, that's also catching me, is that the state statute says this has to be in it. I am not going to put my name on anything that has a state statute that says you have to have this, and it's not there.
So you're saying it doesn't meet the minimum requirements set by the state?
Correct. And it's also it's a misdemeanor to violate state statutes. And I'm not going to do that.
Not for you.
It's not my top 10 things to do.
Other thoughts around the table?
When I was working in the Chicago area, they did a departmental survey.
Right.
What's your highest priority in this job here? The answer was to stay out of jail.
In Chicago, I can believe
it. I agree. Whatever's in the comp plan should be internally consistent among the sections, especially the numbers. I did want to respond to one of the comments. Apparently there's some suggestions that we delete parts of it, which some people are, well, don't agree. Maybe they should be deleted, maybe not, but one reason I heard was because we don't have the money to do it. In my simple brain, this comp plan basically is what do we aspire to be as a county? And I'm sure there's things in there already we maybe don't have a chance to fund, but to me, that's not sufficient. To me, it seems more like a pretense than an actual reason not to put it in the comp plan. There's probably a lot of things in there as time goes on, maybe we can fund, maybe we can't, but you don't leave it out just because you don't think. And I'm not sure how you figure that out. I mean, personally, I would like to see a lot of financial quantification of the plan that's not in there. And the buy me, well, no, it's not that kind of a plan. Okay, fine. So how do you know you don't have the money to do whatever they want, suggested to delete? To me, that's not a sufficient reason.
Isaiah, Echo, Bob. You still, you're thinking, yeah, no,
Just
welcome new guys.
While I'm in the process of things snowballing.
Yeah, no, I
suppose maybe I want to ask the question that I had the staff about how the comp plan in its current form is regarding the state's minimum requirements. And if we're there meeting it yet.
Our consultant was tasked, that was their main task, was to get our plan to a point of meeting the requirement. I have no indication from our consultant that it's currently in its form that it does not.
Jeff, are there specific things you know about that are not in the plan that's mandated?
I've stated one.
I'm sorry?
I've stated one, point blank.
Okay, because I don't want to go to the pokey.
You know,
We're not gonna go to the poll.
I'm talking,
I wouldn't worry about that.
but that is a point. What, is there something in there
yeah,
that?
I mean, the wildland issue.
Okay.
That's there, I mean, it's there, black and white in the statute.
Is that something you can document and send around? Or you?
I mean, I could, but come on, guys. You know, I'm a volunteer. You know, you guys, the people of the
Jeff
statute.
has a concern about putting his name on something that he doesn't believe in.
Mention something else too that, so. The Department of Commerce has a 60-day comment period on our draft as it is, so we submit all of this, then they do an initial review on it. And they can point out where they think it's not meeting, requirements of the RCW. And we can bring that back to our consultant and say, hey, we need to rectify this.
So there's a process to pick up those kind of
Correct.
things that may have fallen through the cracks. Okay, fine.
Long game.
You're off the hook, Jeff.
Can you open up the draft comp plan, go to present it and go to page 146 in the PDF?
I've heard of this in capital facilities, but nobody wants to go through.
Where I'm going. Going to one of your favorites, the going to sewer.
Cool.
What page?
146 in the PDF.
Let's bring
It's
up the pros.
page 137. So it's down to the bottom. And table, let's go to, let's go to table 9.6. And it's split between 136, 137. And I would just note that future usage for North Bay is TBD on sewage. So we know our capacity. Just scroll a little bit more. There you go. Yeah, well, so capacity is 0.65 million gallons a day. We're currently using 0.27. That's our increase, TBD. But if we know how many homes are going in, it's 155 gallons a day per Mason County ordinance. We should be able to answer that number. But most importantly is whatever that number is, if these two add up to more than that, then we have a deficit. If it adds up to less, then we have a surplus. But at least we know where we are. And I would argue
So
we
if you
don't
go
know.
down a little further, it's under 9.7.
Well, actually go to 9.8 if you don't mind.
CBD gallons, so that's million gallons per day.
Yeah, and the other's million gallons per day,
Right.
but Belfair is really some of the funnest is because obviously it's a topic in discussion for Board of Commissioners, Belfair Sewer and this whole extension.
I
But
bet
that
they love that one
aside,
too.
is we heard our county administrator state it's a million gallon a day plant. This says 0.125 million gallons a day, and in defense, that is the current permitted allowable amount. Permitted. Its current usage is about 0.08 million a day. It's not, the current usage is not 125, but about 0.08. That's supported by the 2024 waste usage report. Expected future usage, I don't know where the 07 came from. And I don't know how you end up, well, I understand how you end up with a deficit. But if you, there's, just real quick. So 155 gallons a day times 939 homes. So if you put 939 homes, and that's what is on the table for Belfair and the housing, that would work out to 145,000 gallons a day of increase. Okay, so you got that. What's the real capacity of that plant? I've heard 125,000, 250, 400, 500, 750, and a million. And actually 375. I've heard that number too.
So
But
that nobody
number-
knows.
Well, it's yeah. So
Nobody has a clue. Okay.
I certainly, again, part of this, and this is where the challenge is with this plant, and I think a paragraph actually could be used to explain it. Because what's the current capacity is primarily limited by permitted values. Okay, but then you get into the plant itself and you look at the from accepting the sewage, how it goes through the plant in about 3 stages. A retention pond, we read last week's newspaper, is as we discussed in this room, is a topic of interest, okay, with varying views. And then you have the spray field. And again, you can read the newspaper to get one perspective, there are others. And all of this plays into that. Ultimately, I believe it's above 125, at least threefold, possibly more, like sixfold. And there's reasons I say that. Okay. Do I believe we can handle the growth in Belfair? Yes, I do. And frankly, for the Board of Commissioners, should they get to a point of, and they will, discussion on the extension, I believe the plant could also handle that extension. That is not a reason to extend or not extend. I'm just saying that's not a limiting factor in that discussion. That's all.
A million gallons of stuff a day is a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah, but there's issues too. In that whole system, the spray field will become an issue well before mill.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And these are all issues that I think people are, but the short answer, Randy, you ask, are there examples where we have questions? This would be an example. This would be an example where do we, I mean, and
All we'd have to, all we'd have to do is say, hey, they lay out the capacity, a few assumptions. They not say, here's what the plan says you're gonna do, this is what, to me. It's an executive summary, if we could just get to executive summary level.
when we talk housing and we had the presentation on housing, the expectations, and I'm going to use Kel's comment that as a smaller entity, we don't necessarily have to meet everything. We have limited staff, limited capacity. Okay. But on housing, we are to look at the growth and then address everything that needs to support that community growth. So that would be electrical, water, sewage, natural gas, schools, fire, emergency response, law enforcement, garbage disposal, solid waste, and I'm missing roads, etc. All of these things are technically to be addressed with whatever the change of population is. And I've stated it publicly, I've talked to individuals privately. I would like to see us address electrical, water, and sewer for the 3-year growth areas. Recognizing that leaves the vast majority off the table. But I believe at that point, we cover the 3 primary utilities. Let natural gas be natural gas, okay? And at that point, trust the schools, fire, law enforcement, medical services, everything else to take care of themselves.
Well, the utilities are taking care of themselves anyway.
Well, but we own two of these sewer systems.
Well, I'm
That's-
referring to PD.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
you know, Dave said that he needs to have this,
Dave, which Dave?
uh,
Helping Human
the
Services.
health guy,
Dave Wyndham.
Wyndham.
Okay.
He said-
There's multiple days.
Healthy dude. He says he needs his element in the plan and the plan approved because current and future funding requests, grants, etc., are contingent on that being available for somebody's checklist or whatever they do. Okay? So we have that specter that's sitting out there, and we have to make sure. Because if we don't, life is not gonna be very pleasant for the healthy guys,
Whoa. Okay.
gals. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
he was honest with us.
And. I'm gonna send all of you an courtesy, the staff tonight. I'm gonna send you 21 minutes of the April 2024 meeting. And
Can I ask the chair to do one favor for me?
yeah,
Send it to him,
okay, we'll do that.
please.
You already have it. If you could send out that, it's a 16-minute video clip and the letter that goes with it. Okay, you may want to ignore some of the letter. I sent it back on the 3rd.
And
Was-
remind us of,
Well, it talks about, it's perspective that we gave 18 months ago. And I really, it starts off with about a 3-minute discussion from Peggy Morrell. It's really good. It's sort of, hey, I want to put a marker in the sand on all the issues that are coming up. It has, it talks about climate change in particular, her segment, and the challenges in front of us, taking on this new element, and particularly given the resources that we have available, trying to put this together and to thoughtfully pull it into everything else. Another segment talks about, actually 2 segments talk about best science. And the highlight being that it's undefined. Okay, it was then, I would argue it still is now. All right. And we talk about, there's a comment, from Miss Gale talking about if we can pull all this together, ultimately she believes there's an elegant solution that can be done to address all these different things. And I like that. And that's why I added it. I said, stated a different way. I think many of us have said that over the last 18 months, 2 years, whatever it's been. And there's a few others at the end, but embedded through all of this, and again, I go back to the very first one, because it starts with Peggy, but then she and I have a quick little interface and she keeps going. Where there's a brief discussion of the fiscal realities of ultimately how do you do all of this. Okay, and I think that really it helped me because that meeting in particular had a lot of really neat gold nuggets of people just talking about the hard things in front of us. And as we sit here 18 months later, I don't think we've been able to, get there, not yet. But I think those words are really good words, and that fiscal balance is, this listening tonight, I absolutely struggle with there's multiple comments about maintaining section 10.8. That's goals and policies and the climate resilience element. Many of the people comment on comments that I made, and that's fine. That's exactly what we want to do. But one made a comment about stay with the Washington model on funding. I struggled with that. Washington model on funding, for every dollar that we spend on climate change, 82 cents goes to more bureaucracy and policy. 18 cents goes to making a difference. And I struggle with that. I would far prefer to say, look, we pencil out a project, and if we can't get 80, and I wrote in a comment, 90 cents on the dollar to making a difference, why are we doing it? We have projects in this state that are paying upwards of $40,000 per metric ton of carbon that is secured or sequestered. On the market, you can buy that for $10. Why don't we just buy the credit and let somebody else make the difference? I understand, look, there's a huge difference. Ultimately, you have to deal with this, but that's, you don't buy a stock where you can get it for 10 here, you don't pay 20 over here. And I'm not talking $20, I'm talking significantly higher deltas. And I'm struggling with sitting back and making any advice to anyone to turn around and say, city council member, I recommend you pay 20 times its market value because we're the government. I don't like that.
Which bureaucracy are you talking about? You're saying 80% or whatever the number was.
What I'm saying is there are studies that say Washington State, for every dollar they spend on climate change, 82 cents on the dollar is increased staffing, policy, planning.
That's the state bureaucracy.
Not right, but where are we getting our? I mean, when we start talking about some of these dollar values in that clip that you'll be sent, we talk about along the riparian zones, along the streams, and what needs to be done. And Kel talks about just how much high level resources are required to meet the state requirements. I mean, there's a statement that basically, meeting the state environmental requirements, and you got to listen to get the exact words, and humans are incompatible. Pick one. That's a heck of a statement.
So it sounds like,
yeah.
I thought I heard words like there's alternatives available where you don't have to get the state law to pay all that.
What I'm saying is, if I'm a company and I do not through appropriate law, and I am not an expert, so what I state is will have inaccuracies. Okay, so I want to be public about that. But basically, if as a company, I have to do certain actions to not release carbon into the air, to not release greenhouse gases, to do my proper role. Well, if I can't do that for whatever reason, one way I can, if you will, cover my company's role is to by purchasing carbon tax credit by other companies that have an excess. Okay, and if you recall back in our legislative session, one company in specific got an extra tax, Elon Musk. If you're above X number of carbon credits, you get an extra tax. There's only one company that hit that, it was Tesla. But you could basically purchase carbon credits so covering my lack of ability to perform. Okay, I can cover it with carbon credits, and therefore I've done my just part to society and to our community by doing that.
Saved by accounting.
Yeah, saved by accounting. But if those carbon credits are significantly cheaper than taking the project, why wouldn't I do it? And again, this is a very emotional topic.
But the thing is, the legislature was the ones that crafted the laws that turn into policies and RCWs and you name it. All right, so with that said, the problem about increased bureaucracy and the percentage of dollars going to said bureaucracy really caused by the legislature or legislators, plural. So we got to follow the rules, whatever they are.
This seems
And
outside the scope.
I want to make sure that the other planning advisory members are not getting confused with PAC's discussions that Will's having about greenhouse gas reductions, which we are not required to do. Our climate element is just looking at hazard mitigating for future hazards.
I would. Thank you, Cal. Randy, you talked to, where's the finance piece? How much, basically, what are we committing ourselves to? And I don't, that's, I don't see that.
Well, he's saying, if I understood his point was, we at least initially don't stop with having the goal just because we can't afford it.
Well, we think we can't afford it.
So he's saying, so to speak, prove it out. But until you prove it out, you couldn't potentially have the goal. I'm not saying logically, but I'm saying that
It's always gonna come down to prioritization of having available resources and money. And so the comp plan can have all this wonderful stuff in it. But if we do not have the money, we don't have the time, we don't have the resources, et cetera, things are not going to happen. Even though it's in the plan and everyone has blessed it.
But stuff that's in the comp plan isn't a guarantee that it will happen, though.
No.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's an aspiration.
But it's also a direction for funding. I'm tentative to say what I'm about to say next.
Say it anyway, Joe.
When I read what's created and I look at how our answers are being addressed, it gives the appearance, if you look at logically, that there's a conflict of interest. In such that it's almost like you write this and then you started another project underway unbeknownst. And what I mean by that is, if you write this one way and you have more growth in the cities, all of a sudden you have to do more planning in the cities and you have to do more, plans for the different planning contractors, i.e. sewer, i.e. water, i.e. all these different things. And so to me, in the writing of this, there's at least in the creation of it, there's no check and balance within the organizations. It's basically they present a plan. And the weird way, my way of looking at this whole thing, stepping back, is it seems like it's a self-driving thing that's not what's intended for. That's not what the goals of the statute are.
So simply put, you say you're gonna climb Mount St. Helens and instead you climb Mount Adams.
Right. So those are things that trouble me. But I can look through that. I can work through that type of stuff. But I just get back to, if you can't get your tables and charts worked out, I even can handle the problem that the numbers won't match from table to table because of some different factors. Fine, then put those factors, that statement in there. Although something to the effect that although the numbers say we need this, as a result of this, we got this. And I don't have to have it match. I don't need a complete plan. I've stated this for 20 some years to this county. Get your capital facilities laid out. You don't have to create a 500-page plan, but you do need to understand what you have. And you need to understand how you can use it for growth and work with it with growth. And I can tell you, looking at, given enough time, I could figure it out. But that's not what I volunteered here for. So we have all these people in all these different positions doing the different things. And even though we're a small county, I've maintained, and I've covered this with various public officials, that, spend a week or two, and Alan's done, spend a week or two, turn the phones off and get welfare done. Oh, it is, there's ways, but I'm saying, but we won't do it. I mean, we'll spend 300,000 to create a plan for North Bay Case Inlet Sewer. So basically, it's $1,000 a page. That, again, people may or may not follow. All it needs is an inventory, a high level inventory, not what was stated in this plan. They stated in this plan that there's an inventory. Yes, that's not what the state calls an inventory. That's not what's called out in the guide for capital facilities planning. I'm just troubled by how simple and stupidly simple it is, and yet we won't do it.
So whose job is it to do that?
To me, it falls on who's ever heading up those different entities. I.e. the sewer, i.e. the water, who's ever doing it. And if it's not being done, the county, I don't know the hierarchy of how reporting is done in this county. I'm always trouble with it. It seems like nobody really manages in this county. Nobody manages anything, but there's people how they report to, but nobody's really checking the other person's work.
There are 3 commissioners, 1 county administrator, and all the directors report to the administrator. So I am 1 director. Loretta Swanson of Public Works is another director. There's a human resources director, public health director.
I'm not asking you to defend
county
it.
elected officials, assessors, auditors, etc.
I'm not asking you to defend it.
I'm not defending it. I'm answering the question that Echo asked.
Echo, another.
And I don't find this helpful dialogue. To move the comp plan around, we have answered your questions. If it's not appropriate, then you could take that up with us individually. Everybody has access to your comments and to the way they were addressed.
Okay, fair.
I just want to make sure that I don't want perfection to get in the way of progress.
I'm not advocating that in a way, shape, or form.
So one thing that does complicate this is the county is the county, and there are many entities, both government and private business, that all, as I rattle off all those things on housing, there are many that they don't work for the county, they don't report to the county, they certainly collaborate and team with, just as the county collaborates and teams with them. But they are separate. In some cases, they're private entities, for-profit companies, and therefore, in what data is released, there's rules that follow that too, that, just because we ask and we have this requirement, well, what happens when somebody else's planning cycle is 2 years off of ours? That certainly is very real. And so there are some complications. So, Cal, with the sewer, why can't the TBDs be filled in?
That is a question for Loretta. However, I understand from Marissa that they are doing a sewer plan, which we've informed you of multiple times. And
that it'll be done at the end of the year, beginning of the next. So I can't fill in information that I don't have. And I want to note that this plan has been given directly to that department to fill in. So that information within this document, I rely on their staff. Their staff has filled it in. So what has been filled in this document is what I'm taking as the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to remember this with the capital facilities plan, we update a CIP annually. The capital facilities plan is open for updating when we get additional information, because obviously our infrastructure needs change continually. So this isn't like, oh, we're opening this only every 10 years for the capital facility.
Okay.
And to be double clear, everything there does meet the minimum requirements required by the state.
So the capital facilities plan has been much more minimal than this and has passed every single plan. And I rely on my consultants to also tell me if we were missing something that would be a red light, like, hey, this is not gonna, that we're gonna get comments from commerce on this. They have not highlighted me.
So it's functional and better than it used to be, and it still needs work.
I mean, you know, yeah.
That would be an accurate statement, yeah.
I have a quick few questions on that. There's been a checklist that Marissa shows at the beginning of each chapter from Commerce that says, this is what's required. This is where we have it. If we don't have it, this is when we're having it. We've brought that to you in that meeting.
For some people who have joined later, though, you might not be aware of that.
The hills steep back up. We appreciate you trying to climb it though.
You're asking the right question.
Yeah, but I'm on the right track at least.
Yeah.
The thing is that once this gets passed to the VOCC, it's between them and Commerce, well, actually staff and Commerce. Anyways, we do whatever we do, they do whatever they do. And eventually, quote unquote, it's either accepted or rejected. Typically it's accepted.
And then the work goes on.
Of course.
Okay.
And then in 10 years, they do it all again.
Okay.
Hopefully this. Yeah, there is an improvement, but to answer your basic question, the consultant generated from the previous plan amended it. So.
I first talked to Kel early on when I joined. You know, my world, you don't do just one deterministic path. You do multiples, sometimes tens of thousands of them. But you gave me comfort. She said, you know, it can be adjusted and reviewed every year. So that gave me comfort. Okay, let's pick a path.
You have to understand, I've heard this 25 times. And our letter that went to the commission last year sums it up. The three statements that we as a advisory board made. And to date, the best that's been done is that one plan's underway. And that's not what we advised. We, you know, I mean, we don't need a comprehensive plan for the sewer. We need a summary of what we got, where it's going, you know, those kind of pieces. I mean, but anyway, the bottom line is, you know, I mean, hell, fine, pass the freaking thing like it is and go on. I don't need to have it.
That's not what I was saying.
It's. Just take something as simple, and I realize it's not. Evidence all around us proves it. But what is, you know, in 20 years, the potential capacity to design at for the Belfair sewer? Someone please tell me what the right number is, because I've heard 5 or 6. You know, we had 2 tonight, and we had 1 in this room from our county administrative. We have 1 written here that are.
You gotta remember the term permitted needs to be in there.
That's right, but this is, I think, part of the issue is that it's. We read a chart and we see something and we miss.
Face it, well, you're a technical weenie.
Well.
So is Jeff, so am I.
Well.
Okay, and
Here we just get a little closer. Just a little.
Especially with the Belfair sewer run.
Or I didn't care. Last time I just said, hey, do the water system. It's simpler, it's smaller. Show some progress.
So, Brian, will you please bring up the comp plan again? And, oh, we want to go to land use. We want to go to page 42. Yeah, it's the PDF page 42, it's number 33.
Not your favorite one.
Yeah, you got it. So what you're gonna see is you're gonna see a zoning area. So the table just below this, so if you scroll to the table, you'll see there's, yeah, thank you, that's it. 491 acres in this residential platted area that can take 2,900 units. If you go back to the map. And this is in Allen, this residential platted is all this green. The green does not include the roads. That's a different color. It does not include the lake. That's a different color. But it says 2,946 homes can go in the rest of that. Well, there's about 1,000 homes there today, give or take a few. Okay, and that's single family multiplex. So what it's going to do is convert Lakeland Village from its current 1,000 dwelling units, including the golf course, into roughly 3,000 units. And I would say maybe not a reasonable assumption. Can it be done? Yeah, the chart says so.
Nothing's impossible, just something.
No, absolutely, no, it's not impossible. I'm not, but I haven't gone in and looked at the plat and said, can you put 6 units per acre? I'm trusting the table as is. I'm just asking the question, if we're sitting back saying, can we absorb and actually build the required housing? Is that an assumption we want to reasonably make? And we had this discussion, I think, the last or 2 meetings ago, where Kel explained that the approach taken here and on the table is very common, if not the standard, for small jurisdictions. But when I looked at that a little deeper, and it just caught my eye, I said, is this a reasonable assumption? And that's my concern. It's items like this going forward to add, do I believe we have the space to build the homes that are needed?
Does the board of directors have any clue about that one? I'm sure they have.
I have not talked to Rick Anderson at all. Okay. All right, I don't know. Okay, and obviously Division 15, the new division of Lakeland, that's up over here right now, so that's outside of this, but I don't know what the developer's doing, but based on the acreage and the number of dwelling units, I do not believe it meets the 6 units per acre. Now, again, I'm assuming that's zoned at the same density.
So what you're saying is that this is inappropriate?
I'm just saying, I believe Alan, based on that one item, is that the next, the table 3, if you want to scroll to that real quick, I believe the potential units is overstated by 2,000 in that 4th column. I believe that 2,900 should be 1,000. Again, I'm open to an argument up or down.
Okay, this is standard land use planning requirements via the state and undergrowth management, so I have been doing this for embarrassingly for 30+ years. And was in planning school when GMA got passed, and so I was schooled in it, and this is how we do it. And I don't disagree with your statements, but it's not appropriate for a comp plan level of planning for a 20-year plan. If there's also the ability to enlarge urban growth areas when you need the land capacity, we are nowhere near that point for Allen, Shelton, or Belfair. At some point, which we are, because hey, maybe the single family residential development in Lakeland doesn't want to convert to a higher density, then Allen can expand.
But doesn't this set the standard?
But this would go back to you needing to go and change state law and planning practices. And I don't think that's the role of the advisor.
It's not where I'm going, but
well,
Can I also just say we're off the agenda? I mean, we have questions for PAC that we were supposed to be doing. We chose to defer or extend public comment. And we're deliberating right now.
Actually, we're just having a discussion.
And exceeding
Okay,
a small discussion.
are you recommending we,
Revert to our agenda,
okay,
which was questions for PAC. For staff, okay.
Well, I can't go off that chart, you know, we had that table of 240
well,
items.
okay,
But you really wanna go there, huh?
I don't have any more. This is part of the challenge that we have. We can't have a discussion till all the questions are done. The discussion raises questions. If we don't have some degree of discussion tonight, we're gonna sit down and have 30 hours to come up with a solution. And I don't know how to do that. I mean, I am far more inclined to call an emergency meeting of the PAC in 46 hours.
Not with impacts. But we enables.
I'm
We
sorry?
can't have an emergency thing.
Well, I think the RCW says I can, and our bylaws say I can. So that I'll deal with offline, but that's where I'm more inclined to go. We've got to be able to sit back and have I mean, there is no way we're gonna sit down on the 29, hash this out. And then prepare some sort of format, because I am far more inclined to, if you would. Let me find it. Right, if you could go to page 16. And I realize this isn't an improved plan yet. And I realize the current one reads slightly different, but I'm far more inclined to come up with a briefing, and we go brief the Board of Commissioners as that states. Because that sentence on the top states that we, the PAC, present to the Board of Commissioners and to the citizens the comprehensive plan. I think we go do that. And have that discussion.
I'm not exactly following.
No, I'm saying, look, the Planning Advisory Commission is advisory. It is responsible for reviewing and presenting the updated draft to the BOCC.
So we're gonna present the 270-page draft.
I don't know how else to do it with a recommendation attached.
Oh, okay.
Use big letters in your PowerPoint.
It also says to ensure that the plan aligns with state laws and reflects local priorities. And it sounds like a lot of what we're talking about falls outside the scope. If we have opinions about potential future growth of Allen and the zoning, and we have problems with that, it doesn't really matter for our job sitting here right
Okay,
now.
what about, I'll take it there, what about the statutes? So, we're not gonna address the one that's in the statute,
Which statutes?
the statute with land use.
Well, we were informed that the consultant
I don't.
is meeting the minimums. And
Well,
theoretically, the comp plan is meeting the minimums.
If I may, to jump back to Isaiah's comment is, are we deliberating? What are we doing? I'm trying to understand. How are we gonna be in a 20?
Trying to figure out how to go
pull all
forward.
this together, because I don't know right now, and.
You explain to me what you mean by pulling this together and just so you know, the planning advisory commission does not present to the board.
Not what it says right there.
I was waiting for that.
That's what it says right there.
Okay, well then that's an error that
Welcome to the
Well,
club.
I guess-
That clearly needs to be changed.
That's right, but doesn't that go to the point then, that sentence has been there now for 2+ versions of this plan. So how well has this plan been reviewed by staff?
Well, I haven't read these, I'm looking more at the technical stuff, but and minus transportation, but, so you're right. It's important to read every little aspect, but the planning commission does not present to the board. Once the board makes a recommendation or is unable to make a recommendation to the board, the staff brings the plan to the board. And we'll start by briefings, and then they'll likely want to do some workshops and then before they go to a public hearing in December.
Their recommendation could be that you don't recommend it.
Yeah.
I figured this is where we'd go with this one.
And
but-
if the
It's
PAC,
easy to delete.
if the PAC votes to not recommend it, can the BOCC still accept
Oh,
it?
absolutely.
Okay.
They are the legislative.
Oh, yeah.
The most important word in this entire thing, we are advisory.
Okay.
That's it. We do not have we take in everything the public has said, we take everything from staff, but again, we recommend whatever. Everyone planning for you tomorrow, whatever the advice is, obviously preferably aligned to the topic. But yeah, it's advisory only.
Remember, they can always fire us.
But Kelly, you asked the question, did you answer what's wrong?
Yeah, well, I mean. So what I've heard is, so that's gonna get struck. So that authority is gone. I can't do an emergency meeting. We're gonna be pulled in here on the 29th and be told 30 hours from now, produce something. And don't deliberate between now and then.
Can you call it a special meeting?
The bylaws say you can.
So you can or can't?
You can.
Oh,
He can, or the secretary, which is the director of planning.
Actually, she's right behind you.
I will with it.
so we can have a special meeting.
RCW 4230-080.
I'm talking about the bylaws side.
Yeah, the bylaws too, in section 2 and the RCW, I think. Both allow it, but more importantly, to what end?
I'm sorry, what was that?
To what end?
The purpose of the special meeting would be to what?
And that's where we found
Emergency meeting.
in doing such also.
I mean. The answer is this meets requirements. TBDs are perfectly acceptable and
There's some kind of rule that forbids the PAC from talking with the Board of Commissioners directly, not to not to present, but to have an interactive
if we talk.
communication.
Yeah, if we talk to the Board of Commissioners, first and foremost, that is a public meeting that they're gonna have to arrange, because once 2 of them are together,
Get on their
that's
agenda.
a meeting.
Right,
And
right.
if there's any engagement in discussion, then I really probably is a meeting. If I'm out of spot, I don't.
It's very much not recommended that you talk to them.
Okay.
Very much not like that.
If I heard somebody say that would be useful, but it doesn't sound like. Now I'm getting the vibe, no, don't do it.
So, okay, so basically, in 45 hours, we get the final written stuff. That's put together. In our final meeting before this whole thing's put together, that's the 29th. Right?
Yep, 6 p.m.
Good talk.
And it's due on the 30th. So, where we had 8 months, because this thing was originally due 31 January, you now have less time.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on which timeline you're talking about.
I'm looking at the project schedule extended that was presented back in February 24th.
May 19th.
January 31st. Grand plan.
Yeah, all right. See, this one says 2/26/24. And this one was October 7th, 2024. So you had the earlier version.
At this moment. I see a quasi impasse of things.
You have a suggestion then?
Well, it's not gonna happen, period. According to the Red Sea is gonna happen before this happens. Okay, so it's gonna be a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Need a motion to continue the meeting specifically
Oh.
to September 29th at 6 p.m. in this room.
So the motion might be, we recommend that we
Continue the
pause pause at this point, that we will pick up the public hearing.
We will continue this
We'll
meeting.
continue
to the 29th.
this meeting on the 29th, so starting at 6
meeting.
p.m. With that, get that correct?
Yeah.
Very good. So the motion is for a continuation starting at 6 p.m. on the 29th.
So who made the motion? I'll make the motion.
I clarified, Jeff, that's all.
Okay, so Jeff made the motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are paused for this evening. We'll